Welcome, everyone, to this deep dive. We're looking at understanding dopamine and the idea of a dopamine detox, really tailored for you.
Yeah, and we're drawing from this really interesting series called The Dopamine Detox, Rewiring Your Brain for Focus and Happiness.
Right. So our mission today.
Well, I think it's to really unpack dopamine. What is it? Why is it so vital?
And crucially, why maybe stepping back from all the constant stimulation we face might be a game changer.
Exactly. For mental clarity, overall well-being, all that good stuff.
Okay, let's get into it. You know that feeling maybe you've been scrolling social media forever and you just feel restless, a bit flat?
We've all been there.
Well, today we're exploring the science behind that. Let's start with the absolute basics. What is dopamine?
Right. So at its core, it's a neurotransmitter.
A chemical messenger in the brain.
Precisely. And people often call it the feel-good chemical, which, is partly true.
But it's more than that, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It's much more nuanced. Dopamine is critical for several key functions.
Like motivation, that drive to actually do things.
Exactly that. Motivation, the feeling of reward when you achieve something, the actual sensation of pleasure.
Okay.
And really interestingly, something called reinforcement learning.
How we learn from experience, basically.
Yeah. It helps signal what's good, what to repeat, and maybe what to avoid. It shapes our behavior based on outcomes.
That makes a lot of sense. So it's not just about feeling good now, it's about learning for the future.
You got it. Now, think about the natural ways our bodies release dopamine, the healthy ways.
Okay, exercise, that post-workout feeling.
Perfect example. Exercise is great. Also, just the simple satisfaction of completing a task. Checking something off your list, connecting with others. Socially, that's huge for dopamine.
Right.
And engaging in creative activities. Anything where you're kind of expressing yourself or achieving a sense of mastery.
So these are the sustainable, sort of balanced sources.
Exactly. Our brains are wired to handle those quite well over the long haul.
But, and this is the big but, right? The modern world seems full of these other things, these artificial stimuli.
That's the crux of the issue. They can flood the brain with dopamine in ways that are, well, pretty unnatural compared to evolutionary history.
What are we talking about here? The big offenders.
Well, think about social media. It's engineered for novelty, unpredictable rewards, keeps you hooked.
Yeah, the infinite scroll.
And processed junk food designed for maximum reward signal, hitting those bliss points.
Sugar, fat, salt combos.
Right. Video games, too, with constant feedback loops, achievements, and just the sheer volume of information online. Always something new, always stimulating.
So what makes these different from, say, finishing a project?
Often it's the intensity, the sheer amount of dopamine released, how easy it is to access, and the lack of natural stopping cues. Your brain doesn't get the same I'm satisfied signal.
It hasn't really evolved for this kind of constant high-level barrage.
Not at all. Which leads us nicely into this modern overload problem this series talks about.
Yeah, it really does feel like the world is almost engineered now for high stimulation, instant rewards. It's just everywhere.
It's incredibly easy, isn't it? Your phone is right there. Highly palatable food is moments away. The effort for that dopamine hit is minimal.
So what's the downside? There has to be a catch to this constant flood.
There is. The main problem is something called dopamine resistance or downregulation.
Like building up a tolerance.
Exactly like that. If you're constantly bombarding your brain with huge dopamine spikes, the receptors can become less sensitive. They sort of pull back.
Okay, so you need more and more stimulation.
Just to feel the same level of pleasure or even just to feel normal.
Wow. Okay, that's a clear way to put it. How does this resistance actually show up in day-to-day life? What would people notice?
Well, a really common one is trouble focusing, especially on tasks that aren't immediately super engaging or rewarding.
Procrastination fuel.
Definitely. Also, a general lack of motivation. Things you used to enjoy might just feel a bit meh.
I think people can relate to that.
Feelings of anxiety can increase too, surprisingly. And a big one is that diminished ability to appreciate simple pleasures.
Like a walk outside or a good chat.
Exactly. They just don't pack the same punch anymore because your baseline expectation for reward is so high.
Yeah, that really lands.
Yeah.
It's like you're always chasing the next bigger hit.
Precisely. And this whole cycle, the overstimulation, then the crash when it wears off, can really feed into addictive-like behaviors.
Relying on those external things just to feel okay.
Just to feel normal or to escape boredom or discomfort. Yeah.
Okay, so we get dopamine, we get the modern overload problem, the resistance.
Yeah.
Which logically leads to this idea of a dopamine detox, hitting reset.
Right.
Now, that word detox sounds kind of intense. What does the source material actually mean by it? Are we trying to get rid of dopamine?
No, absolutely not. That's a really key point. The series is clear. It's not about eliminating dopamine. That's impossible and, frankly, bad. Dopamine's essential.
Okay, so what is it then?
It's about consciously, deliberately reducing the overstimulation, giving your brain's reward system a break, a chance to reset.
To become more sensitive again.
Exactly. It's recalibration, not elimination. Turning down the volume, not hitting mute.
Got it. So what's the ultimate goal of doing that? What are we aiming for with this recalibration?
The main goal is to get back to a place where those more natural, everyday activities feel genuinely rewarding again.
Finding joy in the simpler things.
Pretty much. A good conversation, time in nature, finishing a book, learning something new, having those feel satisfying in themselves.
Okay, and what are the potential payoffs? If
Yeah.
someone actually manages to reduce the overload, what benefits might they see?
Well, the potential benefits line up really well with the problems we discussed. Things like improved focus and concentration,
That would be nice.
a boost in natural motivation, feeling more internal drive, less reliant on external pushes,
Mhm.
potentially better emotional regulation, feeling calmer, more present,
Okay.
and just a greater sense of overall contentment, maybe less restlessness.
That all sounds incredibly appealing, especially now. Is there actual science backing this idea up? That reducing stimulation helps the brain reset?
Yeah, there's research suggesting that when you lower that constant high-level input, the brain can sort of resensitize itself. The receptors become more responsive again to normal levels of dopamine.
So it gives the system a chance to find its balance again.
Essentially, yes. It allows the brain to adjust back towards a more natural baseline.
Okay, this is fascinating stuff. And I know this is just our starting point for this deep dive based on the dopamine detox series. Can you give us a little preview? Where are we going next with this?
Absolutely. So now that we've kind of laid the groundwork, the next deep dives will get much more into the practical side.
The how-to.
Exactly. How do you actually implement a dopamine detox? What does it look like day to day?
Good, because that's the big question, isn't it? What kind of strategies will we cover?
We'll dig into the psychology of habits. Understanding how they form is key to changing them.
Makes sense.
We'll talk about concrete strategies for things like digital detoxing, managing screen time effectively,
Very relevant.
and also mindful consumption, being more aware of what we're consuming, information-wise, food-wise, media-wise, and why.
So being more intentional.
Definitely.
Yeah.
We'll also cover building positive, healthy habits that support a balanced dopamine system.
Right, not just taking away, but adding good stuff too.
Yes. And we'll touch on the power of delayed gratification, learning to resist that immediate urge for a bigger payoff later.
It feels like a lost art sometimes.
It can be. So we'll use real-life examples, offer practical tips you can try, and weave in insights from neuroscience and psychology so you understand why these strategies work.
Sounds like a really comprehensive roadmap. Okay, so let's just quickly recap the core message for everyone listening.
Sure. Dopamine, essential, drives motivation, pleasure, learning. Modern world. Full of super potent, easily accessible artificial stimuli.
Which can lead to overload and resistance.
Right. And understanding that imbalance, that potential hijacking of our reward system, that's really step one.
And like source material says, dopamine itself isn't the bad guy here.
Not at all. It's our relationship with it, especially with these modern, intense sources, that needs attention.
So by understanding it and learning to intentionally dial back the overstimulation.
You really can start to reclaim control over your focus, your motivation, and yeah, your overall happiness and well-being.
This has been a fantastic starting point. Really clarifies the what's and the why.
Glad it was helpful.
And as we said, this is just the beginning. In our next deep dive, we'll roll up our sleeves and get into the practicalities, how to actually start a dopamine detox, how to set yourself up for success.
Looking forward to it.
Me too. So until then, stay curious and maybe just reflect on one small thing, one tiny step you can maybe take towards a slightly more focused, more fulfilling way of engaging with your world.